The following video is part of a personal exploration into shadow work, psychology, and the esoteric. I am not a licensed therapist or mental health professional. This content is for educational and self-reflective purposes only. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, please consult a qualified professional. We're here to look at the shadow, but the responsibility for your integration is yours. Welcome back to Malakhem Studio, and welcome back to the Shadow Work series. We've all been told the lie that love conquers all. That if the connection is meant to be, the universe will provide the bridge. You meet someone, the sparks don't just fly. They explode. It feels mythic, like a recognition from a past life or a soul contract being signed in real time. In 3 weeks, you've gone from strangers to believing this is the person you've waited your whole life to find. The intimacy is off the charts. You feel stable, chosen, secure, and for the first time in a long time, you feel effortless. Then around month 3 or 4, you start doing what capable, strategic people do. You look at the logistics. You talk about merging lives. You start to project a future together. And suddenly, the floor drops out. 6 months later, you're standing in the wreckage of a catalyst relationship. You are forever changed. But you're also left asking, how did something that felt so right go so wrong, so fast? Today, we're dissecting why love, even mythic love, is never enough to sustain a bond with a wounded system. Somewhere in that 6-month window, the effortless ease shifted. You noticed them wavering. You sensed their nervous system fraying, and because you are a problem solver, you stepped in. You became their regulator. You started giving more, emotionally, perhaps even financially, and you thought, if I can just stabilize their environment, if I can just show them how safe they are with me, they'll come back to that month 1 version of themselves. You essentially offered up your own peace as a sacrifice to keep the bond alive, and you became their battery. And your logic, the logic of a loyal, high-integrity person, told you, if I give this much, how could they ever leave? Who would walk away from this much devotion? The answer is someone who isn't healed enough to receive that devotion. You weren't building a partnership. You were unintentionally subsidizing their dysfunction. You abandoned yourself to save a we that only existed in your heart or your head. And this is where the ultimate betrayal happens. For many of you watching this, your word is your bond. When you say I'm in, you mean it. You mean it through the fire, through the weight, through the hard years. You operate on an oath-bound level of reality. But we have to realize not everyone is an oath keeper. Most people operate on the state of the heart. If they feel good today, they may promise you the world. And in that moment, they aren't lying. They genuinely believe what they are saying. But when the high of the honeymoon fades and the actual work of integration begins, their feelings change. Because their feelings changed, they feel justified in breaking the promise. They may even turn it around on you and say you're the reason their feelings changed. And to them, the promise was only valid as long as the emotion was present. But to you, the promise is what carries you through when the emotion is absent. That isn't malice. It's a fundamental difference in character depth. They aren't evil for changing their minds, but they are unsafe for someone like you. You are too smart to fall for a con artist, but you are very vulnerable to a sincere dreamer, especially an intense one, who doesn't have the stomach for the long haul. here's the bitter pill of the shadow work. We cannot love someone into health. You can be the most stable, most providing, most loving, most understanding, most chosen partner in the world, and it will not fix a hole in someone else's soul. In fact, your strength might actually make them feel worse about themselves because it highlights their own instability. The very fact that you have your life together becomes pressure for them because they think that you are expecting them to meet you at your level, because eventually they will have to. And not everyone's cut out for that, or they're not ready for it in that moment. I've had to learn that no matter how much shadow work I do, I cannot do someone else's shadow work for them. You can provide the most beautiful container in the world, but if the person inside it is addicted to their own chaos, they will eventually break the container just to feel normal again. So, what do we do with the 6-month catalyst? We stop mourning the person we thought they were, their potential, who they claim to be, and we start respecting the person they showed us that they are. If you're currently in the wreckage of a relationship where you gave too much, I want you to look at the warning signs that you ignored. Not to beat yourself up, but to see where your oath-bound nature blinded you to the fact that they didn't have the foundation to stand on. Here are some practical steps for the oath keeper. Watch the pacing. If it feels mythic in week 2, slow down. Real bonds are built on logistics, not just sparks. 2, stop regulating others. If they are off kilter, let them find their own balance. If you have to fix their mood to feel safe, the relationship is already in debt. And 3, value your word, but keep your word to yourself first. If you promised you wouldn't abandon yourself again, keep that oath before you keep an oath to someone you hardly know. Love is a beautiful fuel, but it is a terrible engine. You need shared values, shared pacing, shared levels of devotion, and a shared understanding of what a bond actually means. And you can't figure that out in 2 months or 3 months. If you've been through the 6-month catalyst, I understand. And this is why I'm talking to you now, to help you through this. And those of us that are of high intelligence, we have an even bigger blind spot. Because we think that being smart, having degrees, a career, a strategic mind would protect us from this. But it's actually the opposite. Because we are problem solvers, we see a wounded partner as a complex puzzle. We think, I have the emotional vocabulary they lack. I have the commitment. I have the depth. I have the security and the intensity. I have the stability that they've never had. Surely, if I apply my resources correctly, I can bridge the gap for us both. We use our intelligence to rationalize their red flags. They pull away. Oh, that's just their avoidant attachment triggering. I'll just be more consistent. They break a promise. They've had so much trauma, they don't know how to trust yet. I'll just be more patient. And the truth is, they don't know how to trust yet. They don't know how to accept what you're offering them. They've never seen love in their life before, in some cases, so they don't believe it's real. And they start assuming that you have an ulterior motive. We aren't being dumb. We're being arrogant. We think our love is so potent, so mythic, so chosen, so meant to be, that it can override decades of someone else's trauma and unhealed shadow. We treat the relationship like a project, and in doing so, we ignore the most important data point. They aren't doing the work. You are. Let's talk about the science for a minute. Those first 3 months, that's dopamine, oxytocin, and PEA. It's nature's way of ensuring the species continues, It's a literal drug. Your brain creates it. In a catalyst relationship, that drug is even harder because it feels like relief from our lifelong alienation. For 3 months, the alien finally found a home, and that's the most powerful feeling in the world. But around day 90, the brain starts to return to baseline. The high wears off, and reality sets in. This is the threshold of logistics. This is when you ask, where are we living? How are we handling finances? What does our 5-year plan look like? For an oath keeper, these questions are exciting. They represent building a foundation. But for someone with a chosen wound or deep-seated trauma, these questions feel like suffocation. They don't want a foundation. They want the high to last forever without the weight of the oath. So why is it so hard to leave once the effortless ease disappears? Because of the sunk cost fallacy. You've already given so much, emotionally, financially, energetically, your time. You feel like if you leave now, all that investment was for nothing. You think if I just give 10% more, surely that will be the tipping point where they finally get it. But I want you to look at your hands. Imagine you're holding a rope. The other person has let go, but you're still pulling. You're getting rope burn. Your muscles are screaming. And you're thinking, if I just pull harder, they'll grab the other end again. The hardest part of shadow work is realizing that letting go isn't giving up. It's an act of self-preservation. It's realizing that the we you're fighting for hasn't existed since month 3. You are currently in a relationship with a memory. I want to be very clear about the ultimate betrayal. When you make a commitment, it's a contract of the will. When they make a commitment, it's a contract of the mood. You cannot build a life on someone else's mood. Moods change, like the weather. One day it's 70 and sunny, the next there's a tornado siren. The next it's snowing. If you're an oath-bound person, you need to stop looking for sparks and start looking for character architecture. Does this person have the scaffolding to hold up their end of the bridge when the storm hits? If they don't, your love is just a coat of paint on a crumbling building. It looks good for a while, but it won't keep the rain out. If you've been the regulator for someone else, if you've been the one holding the rope until your hands bled, I want you to drop the rope. Take all that energy, that mythic level devotion, and turn it inward. What would your life look like if you became your own regulator? What if you became oath-bound to your own peace of mind? The 6-month catalyst didn't happen to break you. It happened to show you exactly how much power you have and how dangerous it is when you give that power away to someone who has not earned it. You are capable, you are intelligent, and you are worth an oath that doesn't expire when the mood shifts. So, if this has connected with you, please let me know in the comments. We'll continue to walk through this shadow work series together, and I hope that I bring some understanding to your peace of mind. Thanks for watching.